In this lesson, we will explain basic input and output functions. The input function is input, and the output function is print. Let's first look at our input function. There are two examples here. Here, we define a variable called age. We assign a value to it using the input function. The text inside the double quotes is the prompt message. Please enter your age. After we enter 18, it assigns 18 to the variable age. The second example, please enter a decimal number. This decimal is assigned to the variable value. Notice that we added a float before the input. As we mentioned earlier, float is our floating point number type. Why do we need to add a float here? Think about it, everyone. This is because if the input function doesn't have a data type conversion, it returns everything as a string. For example, 18 will be considered a string. If we want to perform calculations, we need to convert it to the appropriate data type. We can convert the data type beforehand. In this case, we convert it to a floating point number. Now, let's look at the print function. Here, we use double quotes to output. Of course, the output can be a variable or an expression. Now, the teacher will demonstrate the basic input and output functions. Define two variables, age. We assign values using the input function. Here, we have a prompt, please enter your age. Name equals input, input your name. Let's run it. Enter age 18. Enter your name, Lily. This is how we assign values to variables using the input function. Now, let's input another variable. Enter a number. We want to input a floating point number. Let's check it here. If we don't perform a data type conversion, let's see what type this number is. Age 18, name Lily. For numbers, let's say 3.14. We expect it to be a floating point number. But let's check, is this type a floating point number? This is actually a string type. With input, the default return value is always a string. 3.14, if we don't convert it. The name Lily and age 18 are both strings. So, we can perform data type conversion. Here, we add a conversion. This will convert the corresponding string type to the data type we want. Let's run it. Now, it is a float type. Enter 3.14. As you can see, the type has now changed to float. Previously, the type was a string. We can also check the type here. They are all string types. When we input age 18, it is a string type. Name, Lily. It is also a string type. Now, let's input the number 3.1415926. Is this type converted to float, a floating point type? So, this type is a floating point number type. This is our input function. Now, let's take a look at the output function. We have already used the output function here. The main output function is the print statement. To output, we use a pair of quotes, "Hello world." It will output exactly as it is. This can be a string. You can also define some variables to output. Now, we assign a value using the input function. Please enter an integer. Now, let's output it. We will convert this integer, changing it to an integer type. Alright, we can also output an expression. These two sums form an expression. These are two variables. One is directly copied by us, the other is copied using the input function. Let's take a look. Please enter a number, 3. Since x is 2, and y is assigned the value 3 via the input function. So, the output will be 2, 3. The sum of these two numbers is 5. Alright, this concludes the content on input and output functions.